Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Derrick and Ash Paulson to discuss our impressions of the Yooka-Laylee. So let's get started. Alright guys, so a few days ago you posted your review, Ash, of Yooka-Laylee, and in a rare occurrence, Derrick and I have actually been playing through the exact same game, albeit a little bit slower, but we've been working our way through, and so this is actually really the first time we can do a proper review discussion. Now, granted, you're the only one who's actually beaten it. Derrick is pretty close. I think he's up to World 4, and I'm only up to World 3. So this is going to be a little bit interesting, just given our differences in how we've played the game so far. But before we get into Derrick and my own impressions, Ash, do you want to provide a quick recap of your review?
Sure. So basically, I said I liked it, but that came with a huge asterisk, and for me, that asterisk was the awful, terrible technical problems that at least the Xbox One version of the game suffered from. Now, I say suffered because Playtonic just released a patch recently that actually ended up improving performance quite a bit. It's not perfect, and there's still some problems, but it is better than it used to be. And so I would say across the board, I think Yooka-Laylee is not as good as the Banjo games. It's not as good as the games that inspired it. Like, not even close. But I still liked it overall, and I have a feeling that you guys might take issue with that.
So, real quick, does the patch really change your review outside of the technical circumstances? Like, would you have adjusted your final rating, for instance, or anything else?
No.
Okay.
No, my like it would have remained a like it. Okay. For sure.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Derrick, you want to take it away?
My feelings on this game are complex as hell, because here's the big thing here. Ash played the Xbox One version. Andre and I were playing the PC version, which is why we didn't deal with a lot of the technical hiccups, at least that the Xbox One version does have, or you showed to us. Another disclaimer on my part: I freaking love 3D platformers. They're one of my favorite genres. I've played through so many, between Crash, Spyro the Dragon, the Jak and Daxter series, the Ratchet and Clank series, the Marios. We got just tons of them. Ironically enough, Banjo-Kazooie is one of the ones I haven't played a lot of, because it's 4 days.
I also didn't hear Rocket Robot on Wheels on that list.
I picked up that game. I have not played it yet, but I did pick it up. I now own it.
It'll be a future stream.
But you haven't played as much Banjo-Kazooie, though.
No, I haven't. I played.
Okay.
A few years ago, I did play the original Banjo-Kazooie on N64 and played up to what is it, Rusty Bucket Bay, and I was getting super frustrated because I was trying to collect everything, and I kept dying, and I kept having to restart and doing the path again, and it was just pissing me off. So I took a break and then just never came back to it, even though I could have beaten the game. And that's going to seem oddly familiar with this one, because Yooka-Laylee, there are times where it is so much fun to play. You get this real sense of the classic 3D platformers. You're exploring, you're doing some platforming, you're checking things out, and then the mismessaging happens, or you're trying to find something and you can't find it, or the camera starts having hiccups, or it gets hung up on the geography of the land, because rather than open spaces, they wanted to fill just cram crap in the middle of levels, especially with World 1. It gets better in the later ones, but World 1 is just like, you're in a jungle, so we're going to put random bushes that for some reason you can't walk through, and stuff like that. And it really is like, I don't know about this, but maybe it'll get better. And then you get to World 2, and everything's so spread out, and I'm trying to figure out where to go and what to do, and I'm getting frustrated because I can't do everything in the map because I don't have all the abilities, so I have to wait and try to remember, oh, okay, this is where I went through this thing, basically forcing me to have to re-explore everything all over again. Fortunately, by World 3, the game does improve, and I have more specific issues with this game as we're going along, but I have never been so polarized on a game where I go from, I'm liking this, I'm enjoying myself, to, I hate this thing, I want to burn it, I just screw this game, ready to throw the controller away because the design of this is stupid.
It's really funny that you say that, because you guys remember, you kind of got my blow-by-blow as I was playing, and around the time that I hit some major problems in World 4, kind of at the same time, I got really frustrated. I'm like, you know what, I don't know about this game, I'm really angry, it's so frustrating. And then I realized that my issues with World 4 were mainly localized to those two really bad things that I happened to encounter one after another. And then as I went along, I finished World 4, I expanded it, and I liked the expansion of World 4. And then I actually was surprised, but World 5 was really strong to me, and I felt the game finished pretty strong. So I came out of it feeling decidedly positive, even though I completely agree with you, Derek. Like, the game is so fun, but then it'll just do something really stupid to completely kill its own momentum. However, I have to say, I did some, kind of thinking about it, and Banjo is somewhat guilty of that as well. Like, I think back to some of the mini games that you would have to play in Banjo, and some of them pissed me off so much. So I feel like this is maybe less a Yooka-Laylee specific thing, and maybe more of a Rare, or the whole Rare design sense thing, because, obviously the problems that happened with Banjo were not nearly as bad as the problems in this game. But, there was still some of that frustration factor with Banjo, as I well recall.
Well, which minigames, do you recall which minigames you're talking about?
There's one in Bubble Gloop Swamp specifically that I'm thinking about,
with
where you
alligator?
have to... Yeah, with the alligator, that I just...
Oh, I remember that one.
Absolutely hated. And that was something that just drove me nuts, and it made me angry, much in the same way some of the Rextro minigames do here. The difference here, though, is that there are a lot more of them. Like, I feel like pretty much all of the Rextro games except one, and basically all of the minecart challenges I just don't like. Now, I have heard, though, that those elements are much better on the PC version, which is what you guys have played, so you may have a different experience with that.
Yeah.
I didn't hate the minecart stuff, but it also didn't really excite me. Like, you hear minecarts, you're thinking, oh, fun challenges. No. It's just,
no.
it did not, like, I'm going off Donkey Kong Country. I remember being really tense, really exciting, needing to keep on my toes. It's just collect the damn jewels, and hopefully you'll get enough.
Well,
Good luck.
Speaking of expecting one thing and getting another, like, the whole arcade thing felt weird to me. It's like, oh, I'm gonna play these cool old school arcade games, kind of like in Nuts and Bolts, how you would play the old school Klungo game. But here, it's just, they just repurpose existing assets from the game, 3D games, that are part of these old school looking arcade games, despite, Rextro himself also being an old school character. Like, the game seems at odds with itself at points. Like, it doesn't fully know what it wants to be at all times. And that's kind of like my biggest issue with it, is that it feels so close to Banjo-Kazooie, so close. Like, the closest any game has ever felt. Yet, it doesn't go, I feel like it doesn't go far enough at points, because it's missing the polish. And that polish is kind of, I feel like, what made Banjo work so well. Because I loved those games. I love Banjo-Kazooie, less so Banjo-Tooie, although I appreciate it more in hindsight. Banjo-Kazooie, though, was a magical game to me. And Yooka-Laylee, it just kind of drops the ball in some ways. Both big and small ways. Like, some of the interface issues annoy me with how the UI looks identical to Banjo-Kazooie. Yeah, you can't speed up the dialogue, you always have to either listen to it at its plodding pace, or you have to skip it line by line. And even when you follow it line by line, you still have to hit A at the end of the line, which makes no sense to me. Whereas in Banjo-Kazooie, it would just continue on like a natural conversation. Which also seems weird when the characters cutting each other off, even though they don't actually cut each other off, because they haven't pressed A yet. And, there's also, just overall, like, the transformations just feel kind of like thrown in there. They don't feel as complete as they did in Banjo-Kazooie. But these are all like kind of micro issues. The bigger issues for me is I haven't found the level design to be that good at all. Like, to be fair, I'm only 3 worlds, most of the way through the game, apparently. I've only played 3 worlds, though. There's 2 more left. Apparently, according to you, they get better. And so far, in my experience, World 3 has been better than the first 2. So I kind of want to stick with it, maybe, even though I don't actively want to, but only because I've heard they do get better. But the first 2 worlds, I really don't like. World 2, especially, I try to get out of that as fast as I could. I've not liked anything about World 2. But to sum up, I'm finding these worlds, I'm finding them to be a bit too big, even pre-expansion. I'm not finding them fun to explore because they're confusing. Like, in Banjo-Kazooie, especially, I always knew kind of where I was relative to everything else. Like, the worlds felt big, but you also could see the world. You could see where you're going. Whereas here, I feel like there's giant structures in the way. The worlds aren't laid out that logically to me. And then even on a more individual challenge level, there's times when some of these things just don't make any sense to me. Like, the point where I got really upset, because it seems like Derrick experienced more extremes than I did. Like, he's really high at points and really low at others. For the most part, I'm like pretty even keeled, except there are some points that really get to me. And the one that got me closest to Derrick levels on the low spectrum is when what's the name of that cavern, Derrick? The one.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's like glowing grotto.
Glowing grotto.
Glowstone grotto.
Yeah,
or something.
Glowing Gem Grotto or something like that.
Something like that.
That grotto is a freaking mess. It is completely dark for the most part, except when you eat these like glowing berry things, which by the way, you don't even know that you need until you have to move forward. I was trying to get through it originally without it, and I thought that maybe the berries at the front had something to do with it since, they're glowing and are there, but eating it, you can't eat them at all or interact with them at all until you have them move, where an easy solution would be, hey, if you try to eat this, they should talk to you like the way Banjo-Kazooie I feel like, and tell you, hey, you can't use us yet, go get the move and come back.
Yeah.
Anyways, so, originally I tried to continue on without it, and that was a disaster. Like, you can't see where you're going. But even once you get that move and you eat the berries, they only light up the way in front of you, maybe like 5 feet or so. And the whole idea of this place is you have to roll through using your roll move, whatever that's called. And that thing, by the way, I know you feel differently, Ash. I really hate how that thing controls. I feel like it doesn't control
it's funny.
well.
You really don't. I like it just fine. It's interesting that you really don't. But now, I will say I prefer the Talon Trot to it. But in terms of it acting like a roll move should, and I like the way it feels. Like, I'm okay with it.
It sucks under ice physics.
I feel like it could have been tightened up a bit. Like, I don't mind the loose controls, but it's not tight enough for me. And so, and it came to a head when you're navigating these wall-less, thin walkways, while you're trying to beat the, so these glowing berries only last for a few seconds. So not only are you racing against the clock in terms of the berry lighting your way, which they barely do, by the way, they barely even matter. Barely. I don't know they're berries, so that probably may not make sense. But also, the stupid stamina meter also limits how far you can roll for. So you have 2 meters acting against you as you're trying to get through this cavern, and if you fall off at any point, and this cavern is at least 3 minutes long if you know what you're doing. If you fall off at any point, it resets you to the beginning. And also, even once you reach certain points, as you're working your way through, I felt like it wasn't designed in a logical way where I instinctively knew where to go next, because the camera isn't pointing the right direction. Like, I'm looking around and running platforms up and down. I don't know where I'm going, and there's enemies everywhere when you don't need enemies here. It's hard enough as is.
It's a section that combines darkness, time limits, ice physics, slopes, enemies, and really inconsistent where do I go next? You get turned around a lot of times in this section, and all of us, I mean, Ash, you're the one that said you had the least amount of trouble with it, but Andre and I were easily stuck there for 20 minutes.
See, that's what's so interesting. And I feel like this is going to happen a lot to this game, where people are going to have different experiences with it, because I totally hear you, and I can't say you're wrong, because those are your experiences. And myself, I raged at a completely different part, which was the World 4 boss, as well as the World 4 Rextro minigame, both of which, Derrick, are things that you've had a lot less trouble with. But for me, it's a super long boss fight that at least on the Xbox One version had some major performance problems. So I kept dying because it's like this fight that you have to keep hitting this boss over and over again, and it has 3 whole phases, and if you die in any phase, it's back to phase 1, and I was just absolutely raging. And so, like I said, even though I didn't have problems with, or as many problems with that part that you were talking about, like I said, I got through it in 10-15 minutes. So I died a few times, but I wasn't frustrated like you guys. However, I have my own horror stories from the trenches, so I can't say you're wrong. And that's what's, I totally hear what you guys are saying. Like, this game has jank to it, and it's not like the messaging isn't nearly as good in Banjo-Kazooie as it is in Banjo-Kazooie. It's harder sometimes to figure out what you're supposed to do. That, I'm still missing 9 pages. I'm 9 pages away from 100%, and that's mostly because I don't know how to get the last pages, and even the ones where I know where they are, there's no messaging, there's no proper, you just have to kind of flail and guess what to do, which is
we're both stuck in this same one in World 2, where there's this hot tub who says, sorry, I have no bubbles, I need gas, and I have bought every single move, I have tried everything around that. I tried following his pipes, maybe it's like some pipe thing related. There's nothing I can figure out how to do with him, and that's just one example. There's another example where I just figured it out today that you did not figure it out. You hadn't figured it out at the time, where we had to reflect either lasers or light, and neither of us knew how to get that stuff to where it needs to go so we could activate certain switches or melt things or what have you. And I was just fooling around because I have every ability. There's nowhere else I can go. There's something I can do here. And finally, just screwing around.
Maybe we shouldn't spoil it, though. Even maybe we should, so people don't get frustrated, but maybe we shouldn't. since it's a puzzle.
That's a good point, actually.
That is a good point. But I was screwing around with my moves, figured it out, and it's something it's a move you have to do, and then another thing you do because it doesn't automatically do anything on its own. You have to perform another action on top of that, and then all of a sudden, oh, that's how that's done. Thanks.
But see,
I hate it.
And I totally hear you, and here's what's so like tricky about it for me is that I totally agree with you, and yet when I think back on my time with Yooka-Laylee as a whole, I recognize those times, but moment to moment, I had more fun than I didn't. And I'm like, as a Banjo-Kazooie fan, I'm still glad I played it. Like, I didn't dislike it the whole time. Like, I had a good time. And like, you haven't, neither of you have played it, but I truly do believe World 3 and 5 are the best the game that has to offer. And you guys both agree with me on 3. So I have a feeling you'll also like World 5 if you get there. So the game did finish strong for me, but I can't disagree with what you're saying. I think it's just maybe the degree to which these things really bugged me. But in terms of, not going for 100% and just playing through the game, I had a good time. But it's tricky because I know that there are major problems with it. And I do question whether somebody who isn't going into this as a Banjo fan, who isn't going into this for that nostalgia, I do question how, if that like it rating would be as relevant to someone who's just going in to look for a good game, as they are, compared to somebody looking to scratch that nostalgia bone with Banjo. So I recognize that too, but I still am glad I played it. So it's an interesting discussion.
So are you saying that, do you think that'd be better for someone who's not experienced with Banjo-Kazooie? Do you think they'd be more
I feel like there's a lower barrier of entry if you are a Banjo fan, because maybe you're willing to overlook some of the game's jankiness because of that. I'm not saying that's necessarily me, because I'm glad I played it anyway, but I could see maybe where some of what this game does that's annoying and some of its problems, I can see where they would be more digestible for somebody desperate for that Banjo experience, that Banjo throwback, compared to somebody who just could go out and play any other game instead.
I can see that, but as one who is a Banjo fan, I feel like that's actually getting in the way of me enjoying it. Because I'm making those comparisons. Like I would rather just go play Banjo-Kazooie. Now again, I want to stress, I'm only that's halfway through the game. I'm only up to World 3 though, and you say to keep getting better. So I'm not making this my definitive opinion, but if I weren't playing this for like purposes of discussing this, I probably would have dropped the game long ago. I probably would have just gone back to Banjo-Kazooie and Xbox because I really did enjoy those games. And the thing is, like, I really wanted to like this game. I do like the Banjo-Kazooie games. It's just like the problematic areas just get in the way, like little quirks that just annoy me. And everyone's gonna have a different barometer for what annoys them. So what annoys me may not annoy other people. But like I was telling you Ash a few days ago, I was trying to jump up some ledges, and for whatever reason, there's like a little lip on these ledges. So if you're pressed up against the wall and jump, you can't jump up. You have to back up, then jump again.
Yeah.
Or I was playing a boss fight yesterday, the World 1 boss fight, which at first didn't seem that bad. But there's a similar issue at the top. I don't want to say too much, but it involves rolling up a ramp. And once you reach the top of that ramp, like after you pass all these challenges, just jumping on top of the area where the boss actually is a giant pain in the butt. At least it was for me. Like I had trouble getting up there, then I'd fall down and get hit by the stupid thing, and then you take like damage like 5 times on your way back down to the bottom. Like what is that about? I hear you, and I know exactly what you're talking about, that boss fight. I do want to clarify that the game, I agree, does get better. I think the Worlds 1 and 2 are the weakest worlds. However, I want to make clear, Worlds 3 and 5 are my favorite, and 4 is somewhere in the middle. I like a lot of elements of 4, but there are certain elements I don't like as well, and I think you'll feel the same way, Andre. So I don't want to give you the sense that World 4 is perfectly awesome, because no, I had problems with it, especially the boss and the Rextro game. But in terms of how it expands and kind of exploring and doing things like that, I do like that the challenges and different things you can do are a little more compartmentalized.
Yeah, when it's focused and you have a clear idea of what you need to do, the game shines. Those are the moments where I have a lot of fun. But when it's weird, when it's big and open and like here, go everywhere, it's I don't know, it does not click with me. And some of the things, like one of the other things that drove me to madness, and you guys could, like, we have conversations of this in the past, where I got the transformation for World 2. And what you have to do is you're a snowplow, and you got to clear these piles of snow in order to get hats for snowmen. And then but one is on top of a platforming sequence, and the way this stupid plow works is that you cannot stop. You have to let go of the thumbstick in order to come to a stop. If you hold back, the damn thing will go forward because it's trying to turn. And so I'm going up this area at this moving platform section, trying to jump just right so I land on it, then I can jump on to the next one and land on it just right, then I can finally get to the landmass to clear out the thing, and that took me another 15 damn minutes. Like I said, I have some really good moments with this game, but these moments where it just pisses me off, drives me nuts. I know people aren't used to me being this frustrated at
it's weird.
But I've been dying for this discussion to let these out and actually have an outlet for them, because the game is just like, I wanted to like it. I wanted to like it so much because it's just that nice 3D throwback, and it looks so good watching you do your preview, Ash, and then I get to play it myself and I'm like, this isn't quite. And I also found that, I mean, maybe it is just me, but I didn't find a lot of the characters that charming.
No, I actually agree with that. I like some of the writing, but the characters aren't really doing anything for me either. Yeah,
the writing, I think the writing is pretty good. There's a lot of really good jokes in there, but I couldn't tell you a single character outside of Trouser and like Dr. Puzz, the ones you meet over and over again. The single characters, they're forgettable.
Well, that's kind of mainly what I'm talking about. I mean, when I talk about Banjo characters, I'm not really talking about the incidental one-offs. I'm talking about Mumbo and characters like that. So that's what I mean when I say that I like the characters like Dr. Puzz and whoever, like Trouser, and even Yooka-Laylee themselves. Like, as I said in my review, I think part of the reason why I like Yooka-Laylee is because they don't really fall that far from the tree in terms of, they're obviously based on Banjo and Kazooie, and yeah, like I again, like this whole thing to me, Yooka-Laylee feels like people who really loved Banjo-Kazooie, but maybe were, quite not as experienced at game developers as Rare was back in the day, came together and made something like Banjo-Kazooie, and this is the result. It's at once beautiful, but also it's a mess and janky, but man, when it finds its rhythm, you're having a great time. And so it's a really, like, even yesterday when I went back to do, I recorded some supplementary footage for when we can show off more of the worlds and stuff. And when I was going back and getting some of the pages I had missed on my run through for the review, I was having a good time. I'm like, I'm having a good time. I'm enjoying the music. Like, the controls feel good. It's great, but like then when you get into the nitty-gritty, the details, and those little minor things start to add up, like, for example, clipping against the side of the platforms when you try to do a high jump over a platform. That's something that wouldn't happen in Banjo. So those little things start to add up, and I totally hear you. I guess just for me, they didn't add up into a game that, it didn't add up so much that I hated the game or am sad that I played it. I still had a good time. So I really do think, though, that this game is going to be, like, it's going to be interesting, because what you were just saying, Derek, I know exactly what sequence you're talking about as the snowplow, and I totally agree with you. However, I just did that last night, and it took me getting both snow piles, I know what ones you're talking about, took me probably 5 minutes tops. But I recognize that that was not a well-designed sequence, and that it should not have been that way. They should not have expected you to make those jumps as the snowplow. So I hear you.
That's kind of it. So for me, a lot of the things that have annoyed me aren't things that necessarily took a long time. Like, I'm not complaining about the difficulty level. I'm complaining about the annoyance level. Like, there are parts where something happens and I'll fail, even though I can do it on my next try or a couple tries after. Like, the fact that it happened in the way that it did is what annoys me. Like, that cavern, it ultimately didn't take that long, even though it may have seemed like it. I was taking breaks between each attempt, complaining to you guys on Skype, but it's each time it just like really annoyed me. But I do want to say again, like, World 3 is where things have gone better, and that's because that's probably the one I played so far that feels the most like Banjo-Kazooie, like a Banjo-Kazooie level. In fact, it shares the same theme as a Banjo-Kazooie level, basically. And that's one because I have a better idea of where I'm at in that world. Like, that one feels like one where, like, they had, and I like. I feel like they had to do a proper design for it. The other ones feel more haphazardly thrown together so far. Granted, I can't speak for 4 or 5 yet. So I almost wish they had either A, given the game more time in the oven, or B, maybe lower their sights a little bit. I would have been happy with fewer levels even than 5. if it ensured each one is a higher quality. You know, cut one of the levels, give me 4 really good levels, or better levels at least.
Sure.
And 5 kind of like somewhat sloppy ones of varying quality.
I 100% agree that this game needed more time in the oven. I don't think anyone who plays this would disagree with that. I would be shocked. I mean, yes, I liked it, but I feel like if they had taken the time and pushed back the release and made this a truly polished game, this could have been a like it a lot. Like, I did have fun. There's a baseline level of fun that I had. But I told you guys early on that I was pretty sure that my rating for this game was going to max out at like it. Right. And the reason for that was precisely because of all the technical crap and all the, the little frustrations that mount. So I was like, okay, it's probably going to max out at like, and really the jury is out. Is it going to be a like, or is it going to be something below that? And, I think if the game had ended in World 4, how I felt about that, it probably would have been a meh. But because the game finished so strongly for me, it had taken everything together, that kind of bumped it up to a like it. But this is a case study for the fact that you should not take any reviewer's words as gospel. Like even the three of us, we can't agree on this one game. Yeah, we have things we agree on, but that's like exactly my, it speaks to the point of, just because, Andre, you gave Breath of the Wild a like it a lot, and I would have probably given it a love it, or I gave Shovel Knight a love it, that doesn't mean that Breath of the Wild is a worse game than Shovel Knight. It means you liked Zelda a lot, and I love Shovel Knight.
Right, exactly.
Just like I liked Yooka-Laylee, and you guys may feel differently about that, but I think that speaks to the overall point that just because I liked it, that doesn't mean that is a flat rating across the entire spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, I've sat down and tried to think at this point, like, what I would give it, and I feel like it's too hard, too high, excuse me, and yeah. I do dislike the game at times, so I'd split the difference and go for a meh, but then I'm like, I don't feel meh. I get too passionately angry about this. So do I go for a dislike? I don't know. I have no idea what I would score this game, because again, I can have fun with it, enjoy myself, get into a groove, and then it does those things that just build up and piss you off, and it just the thing is, I'm not finished. I'm still thinking like I might go through and finish it. I'm trying to get 100% because that's how I do these games. Like, I got all the abilities, and rather than go to World 5, which I'm capable of doing, hell, I'm able to go beat the game right now because I have enough pages. But I want to find everything in every level because that's how I play these games. Yeah. And because it's pushing back on me, like I should have no trouble finding the rest of this stuff, being able to do the rest of these challenges because I have all the abilities. But it's pushing back, and every single level up to this point has had one item that I cannot find or cannot do for one reason or another. And I'm like, I know I'm not bad at this. Platformers are one of my favorite genre. This is not on me.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. Yeah.
Well, I know you have to go soon, Ash, so are there any final thoughts you want to get out there before we wrap it up here?
I think I pretty much, kind of said it in my little wrap-up just now, but I would just say, it's just hard. This is one of those games where I think everyone's going to have a different experience with it. I think we can all agree that Yooka-Laylee is not what it could have been, and I certainly feel that way. Just because I liked it doesn't mean that I'm not disappointed at the thought of what could have been. I think, and I was expecting this game to be a lot more polished and a lot, I think a lot more definitive than it turned out to be. And, as it stands, I'm surprised that I just gave it a like it. Like, I figured I would really, really love this game because, like you both, I love platformers. They're my bread and butter, and I love 3D platformers. I adore Banjo-Kazooie. So, it's tricky. I did like it, but full stop, it's not as good as Banjo, not even close. And I think people's mileage are going to vary on this game, but I absolutely still believe if you do play it on PC. Because even with the patch, this game, like the Xbox One version, it looks okay, but the graphics aren't so good that it should be running in 30 frames per second. I don't see how this isn't a smooth 60 frames per second experience on consoles. So there's just a lot about this game's development that I don't understand why it turned out this way. Like, I think we all agree that it could have been a lot more than what it turned out to be, even if I did like it.
Like, I commend them for almost hitting their release target. They delayed it once by a few months, but they were otherwise on point. But now I'm finding myself wishing they had delayed it again. I feel like another year, maybe, of development time. Like another 6 months at least to iron out some of the bigger issues, but I think another year would have been solid for this in order to really get it performing up to the level I think we all were hoping it would, so...
Oh, I did have one thing I wanted to say, is that there were a lot of reviews out there talking about how the gameplay is antiquated, how it's a dated game specifically because it's a 3D platformer and those aren't in vogue anymore. I could not disagree more with that.
Oh, same here.
Like, Like, the
yeah.
base gameplay
Screw
here,
that.
I still really enjoy, and I think there's a place for games like Yooka-Laylee and like Banjo-Kazooie, just, a more polished Yooka-Laylee, but I think there's a place for Collect-a-thon 3D platformers in today's gaming industry. I don't think this game feels antiquated in that sense.
And hopefully Mario Odyssey proves that in just a few months.
Exactly.
Or later this
Yeah.
year. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have to wrap it up here, unless Derek, you want to talk while Ash goes away. So
No, I should quit while I'm ahead. But yeah,
right.
you definitely form your own opinions on this if you're still interested. Just know what you're getting into.
Yeah, and if you have questions about it, shoot us at me or shoot them at me on Twitter. I'll be happy to, answer whatever questions I can.
at Ash Paulson on Twitter.
Yeah,
Right.
at Ash Paulson, and you guys too. I suppose you could answer some questions. So.
Yeah, some.
Yeah, I can answer a few.
All right, guys. I think that wraps up our discussion here. So thanks for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us at Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. You can find links to them in the description below. It's a good way to keep up to date on everything we post. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Yooka-Laylee probably at some point, and other things gaming as well. And by the way, guys, all this made me just want a true Banjo 3 now.
Here.